There are many cultures with customs very different from the ones most of us have. But there is a place in the world where a Zulu tradition makes thousands of virgins dance with very few clothes around their king. In this new video of Uncensored World, we are going to know in more detail South Africa, one of the most surprising, but also the most beautiful and fascinating countries on the planet. South Africa is a country with traditions as surprising as the one known as the Dance of the Virgins, in which thousands of women dance with little clothes around a king with the intention of passing to adulthood. A country with unique curiosities such as having 3 capitals, 11 official languages, possessing the largest diamond mine in the world or the deepest gold mine, or having discovered here the largest diamond on the planet. South Africa is also home to the Zulu community, an ethnic group with such extraordinary practices as their initiation ceremony, in which young men must go away to a remote place for long periods of time in solitude, or the tradition of the lobola, according to which the groom's family gives animals to the bride's family to get the groom to be accepted. A country where an epic struggle against apartheid was forged, led by Nelson Mandela, who became a symbol of the struggle for equality, justice, and reconciliation, inspiring generations of leaders and activists around the world. Pay attention, and don't miss this video because, in addition to these fascinating curiosities, this country contains incomparable natural wonders and impressive wildlife. Let's discover the kingdom of the mythical white shark and meet the Big Five of the jungle, realities that will surprise you. Let's get started. As you will now see, South Africa is not only one of the most interesting and famous countries in Africa, but also a destination full of mysteries and curiosities that captivate anyone who visits it, as you will now see. South Africa is located at the southern tip of the African continent. Its geographical location makes it a cultural and commercial crossroads on the African continent. It is a large country, as its surface area exceeds that of several European countries combined. With a territorial extension that covers approximately 1.2 million square kilometers, it is larger than Germany, Holland, Belgium, France, and Italy combined. In terms of population, the country has an estimated population of around 60 million inhabitants, according to recent data. It is therefore one of the most populous countries in Africa and has a great ethnic and cultural diversity, with a mix of ethnic groups including Zulus, Xhosas, Afrikaners, and many others. This cultural richness dates back to colonial times, when South Africa was colonized by the Dutch in the 17th century, followed by the British in the 19th century. During the colonial era, white Europeans dominated South African society and established a system of racial segregation that would culminate in a regime known as Apartheid. Apartheid was a regime of institutionalized racial discrimination, or in other words, the government condoned and supported the discrimination of the population based on the origin and color of their skin. Apartheid was officially imposed in South Africa in the year 1948, when the National Party came to power. This segregationist system divided the population into racial groups, granting privileges and rights to whites, while oppressing and marginalizing blacks and other ethnic minorities. Whites had political, economic, and social control, while blacks were subjected to discriminatory laws and segregated to areas called townships. These areas were designed to house the black population, as well as mestizos and Indians, separating them from whites. They were generally poor and overcrowded urban areas, characterized by a lack of basic infrastructure, such as adequate housing, drinking water, and health services. With all this, access to economic and educational opportunities was very limited in these areas, and because of this, the original people of this country did not accept this oppression from the beginning. Political and social movements, such as the African National Congress and the South African Communist Party, led the resistance against apartheid. Iconic figures such as Nelson Mandela emerged as leaders in the struggle for equality and justice. Although Mandela was initially perceived as a dangerous agitator by the government, his influence and determination and even more so his many reasons and quest for justice, did not cease to grow. Despite government repression and violence, this resistance persisted and intensified so much that it reached the eyes of the whole world. The whole world thus began to realize the outrage, brutality, and injustice of apartheid, which led to international sanctions and diplomatic isolation of South Africa. Finally, in the 1990s, the South African government began to negotiate a transition to democracy. In 1994, the country's first democratic elections were held, in which Nelson Mandela, leader of the African National Congress, became South Africa's first black president, marking the official end of apartheid and the beginning of a new era of reconciliation and democracy in the country. A very interesting fact that everyone should know is that Nelson Mandela was imprisoned in the year 1962 and sentenced to life imprisonment. During his first 18 years in prison, he was held in Robben Island Prison, where he was assigned a cell of 2 meters by 2 meters, or in other words, 4 square meters. A cell with only a sleeping mat on the floor. Faced with the sad news of having to spend his entire life in a space where most of us would not last a few hours, Mandela kept his faith in a dream that seemed crazy to many: to free the South African people from apartheid. He finally succeeded, becoming an example of how inner strength and human kindness can overcome any challenge. From Uncensored World, we advise you to read Nelson Mandela's biography, or watch films such as Mandela, From Myth to Man, or the award-winning Invictus, to better understand this sad reality of South Africa's past and discover the life of Nelson Mandela. Surely one of the most extraordinary personalities in history. Fortunately, these events are now behind us, and that is why South Africa is known today as the Rainbow Nation, due to a racial and cultural diversity that is unique in the world. An apex that also has to do with the fact that it is the most advanced country in Africa in terms of its policy of rights regarding the homosexual collective, since the year 2006, marriage between people of the same sex has been legal in South Africa. Such diversity means that this country has 11 official languages declared in its constitution, a unique fact that reflects the wide range of ethnic groups present in the country, as well as the historical efforts to correct the injustices of the colonial and apartheid past. A variety that this country also contains in its geography, as it includes vast plains, rugged mountains, and spectacular coastlines. Among these wonders are the inland plateaus and the famous Drakensberg Mountains, which cross the country from north to south, as well as the coastal region known as the Skeleton Coast in the west, a place as famous as it is mysterious. Located in the west of the country along the Atlantic Ocean, the Skeleton Coast lives up to its name because of the numerous shipwrecks that have occurred over the centuries, leaving the remains of ships and skeletons along its deserted beaches. The extreme climate and the dangerous sea currents have contributed to the formation of this maritime cemetery, creating an aura of mystery and fascination in anyone who has the chance to discover it. In addition to its reputation as a shipwreck site, this place is also home to surreal landscapes. Its extensive sand dunes, steep cliffs, and coastal lagoons create an environment unique in the world. Another surprising fact about South Africa is that it has not one, but 3 official capitals. Pretoria is the administrative capital, Cape Town is the legislative capital, and Bloemfontein is the judicial capital. Each of these cities plays an important role in the governmental structure of the country. These realities and developments mean that this country has the largest economy on the African continent and continues to grow. It is currently the largest producer of platinum in the world, the 5th largest producer of gold, and one of the largest exporters of diamonds, both of which are the country's most important source of income. Thinking about diamonds, it is interesting to discover a unique place on the planet known as the Big Hole, or the Big Hole. The Big Hole, also called Kimberley Mine, is an open pit and subway mine located in the city of Kimberley, South Africa. It is considered to be the largest hand-dug hole in the world, a hole that is now filled with water forming a small lake, because what was considered the world's largest excavated diamond mine was closed in the year 1914. It all started with the so-called New Diamond Fever, because a huge diamond was found on the slopes of a place called Kolsberg Kopje. A little more than a month later, 2,000 or 3,000 men started a frantic excavation that ended up turning the place into a huge mine, known as Kimberley Mine. In time, it became one of the world's largest hand digs and the epicenter of the diamond rush in South Africa. However, with the depletion of the diamond deposits, the mine was closed. With the cessation of operations, the huge excavation filled with water, creating an amazing sight for the eyes. Today, the Big Hole is a major tourist attraction in South Africa, with visitors coming from all over the world to view this natural wonder. It was also in South Africa that in the year 1905, the world's largest diamond was found in the Premier Mine in Pretoria. It weighed 3,106 carats, more than 600 grams, and measured almost 12 centimeters. A curious fact is that up to 105 gems were extracted from this enormous diamond, and that the largest of them all, known as the First Star of Africa, went to the English royal crown, which is still used today by royalty in this country. As for gold, the Mponeng gold mine is the deepest mine on the planet and reaches more than 4 kilometers below the surface of the Earth. To get an idea of its colossal dimensions, we could imagine more than 10 skyscrapers the size of the Empire State Building stacked on top of each other and still not reach its base. Mponeng has been the source of almost half of the gold extracted from the mines. The discovery of this precious metal in the region in 1886 triggered the well-known gold rush, which resulted in the establishment of the city and capital of Johannesburg. In addition to possessing the deepest, most enormous mine ever excavated, or the largest diamond ever discovered, South Africa is also home to the planet's most enormous mammal, the African elephant. These magnificent animals can be spotted in several reserves and natural parks in South Africa, such as the Kruger National Park and the Addo Elephant National Park. As we mentioned at the beginning, South Africa is one of the few places in the world where it is possible to see the Big Five on safari, the 5 most amazing and extraordinary animals in the world in their natural habitat. These Big Five are the lion, leopard, rhinoceros, buffalo, and elephant, incredible animals that can be easily discovered in the jungles of this incredible country. Apart from the Big Five, South Africa's coasts are known worldwide as the habitat of white sharks, one of the most iconic and feared species in the ocean. Its waters are, therefore, one of the best in the world for diving with great white sharks. Swimming with these animals in a protected environment can be one of the most impressive and unique experiences that exist. One of the best places to do it is Gansbaai, a small town famous for the large number of options for this activity. The dive is usually done from a boat that carries a cage with capacity for 4 people. This cage is immersed in the sea a few meters deep and, although it all depends on the visibility underwater that day, if you get to see them up close, we are sure that it is something you will never forget. It is good to know about these activities, but it is also good to be very cautious as South Africa has some of the most dangerous beaches in the world due to high white shark activity and hunting. Places where swimming is not allowed because, at certain hours and without a cage to protect you, you would surely put your life at serious risk. As you are discovering in this video, South Africa is as enigmatic as it is diverse, both in its geography and in its history and fauna. A diversity that has a lot to do with the fact that South Africa also has one of the most enigmatic and famous ethnic groups on the planet, the Zulu. Originating in the region that now comprises the province of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, the Zulu have left a unique mark on the country's history. Their ancestry dates back to ancient times, shrouded in the mystery of the Bantu migration and the formation of the first African kingdoms. That is why the Zulu are known for their warrior traditions and ancestral rituals, which still keep alive the legacy of their ancestors. Within the enigmatic Zulu culture, there is an ancestral rite that marks the transition of male children's youth into adulthood, known as the Ulwaluko. This mysterious ritual involves Zulu youths moving away from family life for a few weeks or months, immersing themselves in an initiatory experience in which they will have to face the difficulties and dangers of life in solitude. During this period, the young men are guided by wise men of the community who pass on knowledge and teachings about their heritage and responsibilities as future tribesmen. One of the hardest practices of the Ulwaluko is known as the circumcision ceremony, a crucial and symbolic step on the path in which they are taught about the value of courage, resistance, and respect for ancestral traditions. Another surprising Zulu tradition is that of lobola, also known as bride price, a practice rooted in Zulu culture that has been maintained over generations. In this tradition, the groom's family gives cattle to the bride's family as part of a marriage agreement. The lobola is not only a symbolic act of respect for the bride's family, but also serves to strengthen the ties between the two families and to ensure the financial stability of the future couple. The interesting thing about the lobola is that the value of the dowry can vary significantly depending on several factors, such as the social position of the families, the bride's education and skills, as well as the amount of livestock or goods that the groom can offer. Although in the past, lobola was mainly done with animals, nowadays it can also include cash, cars, and even property. But as extraordinary or more than the Ulwaluko or the lobola is the so-called Dance of the Virgins, known as Umkosi Womlanga in Zulu, a practice that in this case includes only women. This traditional ceremony is performed in South Africa, and especially in the Kingdom of Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland, where it has a special significance. During this dance, young women who have reached puberty participate in rituals and dances that celebrate their transition to adulthood and their readiness for marriage. The Dance of the Virgins is an important part of Zulu and Swazi culture, designed to teach young women about their role in society and preserve ancestral traditions. This event is considered a show of respect for the king and an opportunity to showcase the beauty and grace of the participants. One of the most striking things about this tradition is that most women usually dance bare-breasted or with minimal clothing, following ancestral customs. These clothes are complemented with movements and songs that have been transmitted from generation to generation by the Zulu and Swazi ethnic groups, communities that share this tradition. That is why also in Swaziland, thousands of young girls attend the royal palace every year to participate in this extraordinary ceremony, where they are received by the king and other traditional authorities whom the girls honor with their dances. At this point, we take the opportunity to ask you, what do you think of these traditions? Would you be prepared to perform them? Would you like to participate? Pause the video and leave us your comment. Doing so is the best way for you to be part of Uncensored World and help others to know better the world around us, so thank you. This ancestral dance, typical of the Zulu ethnic group, is performed in several places in South Africa, but its main destination is the Kingdom of Eswatini, also known as Swaziland. This independent country, although it was under the colonial rule of South Africa for many years, and therefore retains these cultural and ceremonial traditions that it shares with the South African country, where thousands of young Zulu and Swazi people come together to participate in this unique celebration, which symbolizes the transition to adulthood and the preservation of cultural heritage. A cultural heritage that can also be seen in the markings that can be seen from as high in the sky as the one known as the Vredefort Dome, known as the most enormous scar on Earth. The Vredefort Dome is one of the most fascinating corners of South Africa, a huge massive crater caused by a meteorite, which makes this place considered the largest scar on Earth. Its radius is about 300 kilometers, and according to experts, this indicates that the meteorite was the size of a mountain between 5 and 10 kilometers long. According to scientific calculations, when the meteorite hit, an energy of 100 million megatons was released. In other words, If this had happened in our times, the human being and many other species would have disappeared from the face of the earth, since it is estimated that this impact was several times more powerful, and therefore lethal, than the meteorite that exterminated the dinosaurs. All this makes this place part of the list of World Heritage Sites since the year 2005. South Africa is also recognized as one of the cradles of humanity, thanks to its famous archaeological discoveries. Archaeologists have unearthed some of the oldest remains of our ancestors here. The UNESCO fossil hominid sites comprise 5 different localities, and archaeological evidence traces human evolution back more than 2.5 million years. This country is one of the richest in these remains and vestiges, as remains have been found here showing that our ancestors used stone tools 2 million years ago and mastered fire 1.8 million years ago. About 50 kilometers northwest of Johannesburg is the so-called Cradle of Humankind, a collection of paleontological and archaeological sites, also designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1999. As you have been able to discover in this video, South Africa is one of the most amazing places on the planet, both in its present and in its past. Its history not only enriches our understanding of the world, but also of our own origins and needs as human beings. From Uncensored World, we hope that this tour of South Africa has been as exciting for you as it has been for us. Thinking about it, and the effort it takes us to make these videos, we would love you to leave us a nice like, and also your comment, since that is the best way you have to help us to keep working every week to bring you the best content. If you enjoyed this video and you are not subscribed yet, don't wait any longer and do it now so you don't miss the fascinating videos we make every week. Videos like this one that you can enjoy now to know one of the most fascinating corners of the planet. Don't miss it and discover the wonders that this place has to offer.